The massive ship appeared above Earth. On a cold morning in March 2347, it was unlike anything humans had ever seen. The vessel looked like a giant crystal teardrop hanging in the sky and reflecting sunlight in strange, beautiful ways. It was 3 miles long and completely silent. Admiral Catherine Cole stood on the observation deck of the United Earth Defense Station, watching the alien craft through the reinforced windows. She was 62 years old, with short gray hair and eyes that had seen too many battles. Her hands were steady, but her heart was beating fast. "Admiral, they are sending a message," said Lieutenant Danny Warren, a young man with nervous fingers working the communication controls. "The computer is translating it now." Catherine waited. Around her, the station's crew had stopped their work. Everyone was watching, waiting, holding their breath. The translation came through the speakers in a cold, flat voice. Species designation: human. Origin: Sol 3. You have been observed for 200 of your years. Your expansion into surrounding star systems has been noted. The Galactic Council demands tribute as condition for your continued existence. Catherine felt her stomach drop. She had always known that other intelligent life existed in the galaxy. Humanity had found ruins on distant worlds, signals from faraway stars. But this was the first direct contact. The message continued. You will provide 60% of your planetary resources each year. You will provide 10 million of your species for labor redistribution. You will surrender all military vessels and weapons technology. You have 1 rotation of your planet to comply. Failure to submit will result in extinction. The room was silent. Danny Warren's face had gone white. Someone behind Catherine made a small sound of fear. "Get me a secure channel to President Taylor," Catherine said, keeping her voice calm. "And find Admiral Samuel Price. Tell him to meet me in the war room in 1 hour." Deep beneath the city of Geneva, in a bunker that could survive nuclear war, President Marcus Taylor sat at the head of a long table. He was a tall man with kind eyes and a gentle voice, but today his face was hard as stone. Around him sat the most powerful people on Earth in its 12 colony worlds. General Patricia Hammond, commander of Earth's ground forces, was reading the alien message for the 4th time. "This cannot be real," she said. "They want us to just give up everything? Our people? Our resources? Our freedom?" "It is very real," said Dr. Linda Morris, the planet's top expert on alien life. "We have studied the Galactic Council for decades. They are a group of 12 ancient species that have ruled this part of the galaxy for 50,000 years. They view younger species as resources, nothing more." "How happens if we refuse?" asked Secretary Howard Grant. Linda's face was grim. 3 species have refused tribute in the last 1,000 years. All 3 were completely destroyed. Every planet, every colony, every single member of their species. The Council does not make empty threats. The room fell into heavy silence. Admiral Catherine Cole appeared on the holographic display, her image flickering slightly from the distance. "Mr. President, I have moved our fleet into defensive positions around Earth and the inner colonies. But I must be honest with you. Based on what we know of Council technology, we cannot win a direct fight. Their ships are faster, their weapons more powerful, and they have thousands of vessels. We have less than 200. President Taylor listened without speaking. He was thinking about his daughter, his grandchildren, the billions of people depending on him to make the right choice. "Perhaps we could negotiate," Howard Grant suggested. "Offer them a smaller tribute. Work within their system. By time to develop better technology." "You do not negotiate with someone who has already decided you are beneath them," Catherine replied. "They are not looking for partners. They are looking for slaves." Patricia Hammond slammed her hand on the table. "So what do we do? Roll over and die? Let them take our children." "No," said President Taylor. He spoke softly, but everyone turned to listen. "We do not surrender, but we also do not throw ourselves against a wall we cannot break." He stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the artificial lights of the bunker. "My grandfather used to tell me stories about the old days on Earth, when humans were just beginning to build cities. He said that whenever a bigger tribe came to take what was theirs, the smaller tribe had 2 choices: Fight and die, or think and survive. He turned back to face the room. I want options. Real options. Not surrender and fancy words. Humanity did not crawl out of caves, survive wars and plagues, and cross the stars just to kneel before anyone. He looked at each person in turn. Find me another way. We have 22 hours. On the frozen moon of Titan, orbiting Saturn, a secret research station hummed with activity. Dr. Benjamin Cole, Catherine's younger brother, had not slept in 36 hours. His eyes were red, his hair was messy, and his hands shook from too much coffee. But he was smiling.
I run the numbers again, he told his assistant.
Sophie Martin, a young woman with dark skin and bright eyes. Sophie typed rapidly on her console. The results came back the same as before. It works, she whispered. Benjamin, it actually works. Benjamin picked up his secure communication device and called his sister. Catherine, I need to speak with you and the president. What we have been working on, what we call Project Prometheus, it is ready. Ready for what? Catherine asked. Ready to change everything? In the bunker, President Taylor watched as Benjamin explained the science behind Project Prometheus. Most of it went over his head, talk of quantum fields and energy conversion and dimensional folding. But he understood the important part. You are telling me, the president said slowly, that we have technology the council does not have. Not just technology they do not have, Benjamin replied. Technology they do not even know is possible. They have been the most advanced civilization for so long that they stopped looking for new discoveries. They believe they already knew everything. But the universe is bigger than any of us can imagine. And we found something they missed. Catherine leaned forward. Will it work? Can we actually defend ourselves against them? Benjamin met her eyes through the holographic display. Yes. But more than that, we can show them that the galaxy has changed, that humanity will not be slaves, that the old rules no longer apply. President Taylor was quiet for a long moment. He thought about the billions of lives depending on his choice, the children who would grow up free or in chains, the future of humanity itself. Finally, he nodded. Prepare our response, he said. It is time to show the council that they made a very serious mistake. Above Earth, the crystal ship waited. Inside, High Arbiter Kethvorin checked the time. The humans had less than 1 hour to respond. He expected begging. He expected tears and promises and desperate offers of partial compliance. That was what tribute species always did. He had no idea that his entire world was about to change. High Arbiter Kethvorin stood on the bridge of his crystal ship, watching the blue and green planet below. He was tall and thin, with pale silver skin and eyes that had seen 300 years of tribute collections. His species, the Velanthi, had led the Galactic Council for 10,000 years. They were masters of the galaxy, and they had never known defeat. The deadline approaches, said his second-in-command, a young Velanthi named Sorenkel. The humans have not yet responded. Kethvorin made a dismissive gesture with his long fingers. They are probably still arguing among themselves. These primitive species always do. Some want to fight, some want to surrender, some want to negotiate. In the end, they all kneel. It is the only logical choice. And if they do not? Sorenkel asked. Then we activate extinction protocols. Their entire species will be erased. Their planets will be burned. Their history will be forgotten. It has happened before. It will happen again. Kethvorin spoke these words without emotion, as if discussing the weather. On Earth, President Marcus Taylor stood in the command center, surrounded by screens showing every major city on the planet. People were in the streets holding each other, crying, praying. They knew something terrible was happening, even if they did not know the details. Is everything ready? The president asked. Admiral Catherine Cole nodded. The fleet is in position. Project Prometheus is online. Benjamin's teams have completed final checks on all systems. And you are sure this will work? Catherine allowed herself a small smile. My brother has many faults, but he does not make mistakes with his science. If he says it works, it works. The president took a deep breath. Then let us make history. He pressed a button on his console and spoke into the microphone. His words would be broadcast on the same frequencies the Council had used, reaching every ship in the alien fleet. This is President Marcus Taylor, of the United Earth Government, speaking on behalf of all humanity. You demanded tribute. You demanded our resources, our people, our freedom. You expected us to kneel? He paused, and when he spoke again, his voice was strong and clear. Our answer is one word: changed. On the crystal ship, Kethvorin frowned. Changed. What does that mean? Is this some kind of insult? Before anyone could answer, alarms began screaming throughout the vessel. Screens flickered. Sensors went wild with readings that made no sense. What is happening? Kethvorin demanded. Sorenkel's hands flew across his controls. I do not understand. There are energy signatures, peering across human space, power levels that should not be possible. Our instruments cannot even properly measure them. On Earth, on Mars, on every human colony world, hidden structures began to rise from the ground. For decades, humanity had been secretly building, deep underground, in places no satellite could see. They had prepared for this day, not because they knew it was coming, but because they believed it might, and now project. Prometheus came to life. The technology was based on a discovery that Benjamin Cole had made 12 years ago, almost by accident. He had found a way to tap into the fundamental energy that held the universe together. It was not magic, though it might as well have been. It was simply science that no one else had ever imagined. From the orbital shipyards of Jupiter, new vessels emerged. They did not look like the sleek human ships of the regular fleet. They looked strange, almost organic, with hulls that seemed to shift and flow like liquid metal. 27 of them in total, each one carrying technology that the Council had never seen. Admiral Catherine Cole stepped onto the bridge of the lead ship. It was called the Spirit of Defiance, and it was the most powerful weapon humanity had ever built. Admiral on deck announced Commander Ryan Ellis, her tactical officer. He was a young man with red hair and freckles, but his eyes were sharp and focused. Status report, Catherine ordered. All Prometheus systems are operating at full capacity. The fleet is in formation. We are ready to engage on your command. Catherine looked at the main screen, which showed the alien crystal ship hanging above Earth. It looked so beautiful, so peaceful. It was hard to believe it contained creatures who wanted to enslave or destroy her. Its entire species. She opened a communication channel. Council vessel, this is Admiral Cole of the United Earth Fleet. I am giving you one chance to withdraw from our space. Take this offer. Go back to your masters and tell them that humans are not tribute species. We are not resources to be taken. We are not slaves to be collected. Kethvorin's voice came back, full of contempt. You dare to threaten us? You, who have been in space for barely 3 centuries? We ruled this galaxy before your ancestors learned to make fire. You will learn your place, human. Our place, Catherine said quietly, is wherever we choose to stand. She cut the communication and turned to her crew. The Council has refused our offer. They will call for reinforcements. We will let them. I want the galaxy to see what happens when you threaten humanity. On Volantis Prime, the homeworld of the Volantis species, Supreme Commander Tarathavel received the emergency message from Kethvorin. He was a legend in the Council military, a warrior who had personally overseen the extinction of 2 species who dared to resist. The humans have developed some kind of new technology, Kethvorin reported. I request immediate military support. Torthvel reviewed the sensor data that Kethvorin had sent. He studied the energy readings, the strange new ships, the massive structures that had appeared across human space. It is a trick, he decided. Primitive species often try such things. They build impressive-looking machines to frighten us. But machines without real power behind them are just expensive decorations. He ordered 140 warships to jump to human space. It was the largest battle fleet the Council had assembled in over 1,000 years. Enough firepower to crack planets, to burn entire star systems. We will teach these humans a lesson, Torthvel announced to his fleet, a lesson that the entire galaxy will remember. Back in human space, Catherine watched the Council fleet arrive. The ships were beautiful in their terrible way, crystalline structures that seemed to glow from within. Each one was massive, armed with weapons that had destroyed civilizations. 140 vessels, Ryan Ellis reported. They are taking standard battle formation. Catherine nodded. She had studied Council military tactics for 20 years. She knew every formation, every strategy, every weapon they possessed. And she knew that none of it would matter today. Hold position, she ordered. Let them come to us. Let them fire first, Admiral. Are you certain? If we let them shoot first, trust me, Commander. And trust Benjamin. Today, the rules of the galaxy change. President Taylor, watching from Earth, felt his hands shaking. His entire species was depending on this moment. If Catherine was wrong, if Benjamin's technology failed, humanity would die. But deep in his heart, he felt something else. Pride, hope, the knowledge that regardless of what happened next, humanity had chosen to stand rather than kneel. The Council fleet powered their weapons. 2,000 plasma cannons glowed with deadly energy. 500 graviton torpedoes locked onto the human ships, and then they fired. The wall of fire that came toward the human fleet was beautiful and terrible. 2,000 bolts of superheated plasma, each one burning hotter than the surface of a star. 500 graviton torpedoes, weapons that could crush steel into paper. It was enough firepower to destroy a small moon. On the bridge of the Spirit of Defiance, Commander Ryan Ellis gripped his console with white knuckles. Every instinct in his body screamed at him to run, to dodge, to do something. But Admiral Catherine Cole stood perfectly still, watching the incoming death with calm eyes. Admiral, Ryan said, his voice tight with fear, "Should we raise shields?" "No," Catherine replied. "Watch." The first plasma bolts reached the human fleet. And then something impossible happened. They simply stopped existing. One moment the bolts were there, streaking toward the ships with deadly speed. The next moment they were gone, as if they had never been. The graviton torpedoes twisted and collapsed in on themselves, becoming tiny, harmless balls of matter that drifted away into space. Double quotes, what, ... Ryan stared at his screens. What just happened? Catherine smiled. Project Prometheus. The Council's weapons are based on energy transfer. Heat, gravity, kinetic force. Our Prometheus fields convert that energy and store it. They just gave us enough power to run Earth for a year. Across the human fleet, similar scenes were playing out. Crew members who had expected to die were instead watching as the most powerful weapons in the galaxy were swallowed like water drops falling into an ocean. On Supreme Commander Torethvel's flagship, chaos reigned. Possible. Torethvel growled, staring at his displays. Fire, again. All weapons. Full power. His fleet obeyed. Another wave of death flew toward the human ships, and again it simply vanished. Energy analysis shows complete absorption, reported his science officer, a Crethany with 4 arms and terrified eyes. The human shields are not blocking our weapons. They are eating them. Torethvel felt something cold creep into his heart. In 300 years of service, he had never seen anything like this. No species had ever stood against Council weapons. None had ever survived even a single volley, and the humans were not just surviving. They were not even trying to fight back. They were just standing there, taking everything his fleet could throw at them, as if his weapons were nothing more than light rain. Admiral Cole opened a communication channel. Supreme Commander, your weapons cannot hurt us. Your shields cannot stop us. I am giving you one more chance to withdraw. Take your ships and go home. Tell your council that humanity refuses to be tribute. Tell them the rules have changed. You think you have one? Torethvel snarled. You have only delayed the inevitable. The council has weapons you cannot imagine. We will burn your worlds. We will scatter your people across the void. We will. You will be quiet now, Catherine interrupted. I did not want to do this. I wanted to settle this without bloodshed. But you need to understand exactly what you are dealing with. She turned to Ryan. Target their flagship. Disable only. I want the commander alive to deliver our message. Yes, Admiral. The spirit of defiance did not fire missiles or plasma or torpedoes. Instead, a pulse of light, soft and almost gentle, reached out from the human ship. It passed through Terethfel's shields as if they were not there. It passed through his hull without leaving a mark, and then every system on his ship went dark. The lights died. The engines stopped. The weapons went cold. Even the artificial gravity failed, leaving Torethfel floating in the darkness of his own bridge, surrounded by the frightened whispers of his crew. "What have you done?" he demanded, though no one could hear him. His communication systems were as dead as everything else. Catherine's voice came through the emergency speakers. It's the only system the human pulse had left working. "I have turned off your ship, Commander. Your crew is unharmed. Your vessel is undamaged. You simply have no power. Think of it as a demonstration." One by one, the rest of the Council fleet went dark. 140 warships, the pride of galactic military power, floating helpless in the void. Not destroyed. Not damaged. Just switched off like old lights. On Earth, President Taylor watched with tears in his eyes. Not tears of fear, but of relief, of joy, of overwhelming pride. "They did it," whispered Secretary Howard Grant. "They actually did it." "No," the president said. "They did not just win a battle. They changed everything. The galaxy will never be the same after today." Catherine ordered rescue ships to attach towing cables to the disabled council vessels. The work took 12 hours, during which time the human crews brought food and water to the alien ships. Keeping their crews alive and comfortable, many of the council soldiers had expected to be tortured or killed. When human medics arrived instead, offering medical care and warm blankets, they did not know how to react. "Why are you helping us?" asked Sorenkel, Kethvorin's second in command. "We came here to enslave your people." The young human medic, a woman named Grace Palmer, looked at him with kind eyes. "Because you are not our enemies. You were just following orders from leaders who made a mistake. We do not punish soldiers for the choices of politicians. But we would have killed you. All of you," Grace shrugged. "Maybe, but you did not. And now, maybe you understand that humans are not what you thought we were. We are not weak because we choose kindness. We are strong enough to afford it." Sorenkel had no response to that. He simply sat in silence, thinking about everything he had believed about primitive species, and wondering how much of it had been wrong. The disabled fleet was towed to the edge of council space and released. Emergency power was restored, just enough to get them home. As the ships limped away, Catherine broadcast one final message. "Go back to your council. Tell them what happened here. Tell them that humanity does not want war. We do not want conquest. We do not want revenge for your threats. What we want is simple: to be left alone, to grow and explore and learn in peace. If the council can accept that, we can be neighbors. Maybe even friends." She paused and her voice grew harder. "But if the council cannot accept that, if they send more fleets, if they try to destroy us, then they will learn that we can do much more than disable ships. We can end threats permanently. The choice is theirs." On Volantis Prime, the crippled fleet arrived to chaos. The news spread across council space like wildfire. A primitive species, barely 3 centuries into space travel, had humiliated the greatest military force in the galaxy, without losing a single ship. Without killing a single enemy, the political impact was immediate. Tribute species across the galaxy began to whisper. If the humans could resist, maybe others could too. Maybe the council was not as all-powerful as it seemed. Emergency sessions were called. Arbiters screamed at each other in chambers that had not seen such anger in millennia. Some demanded another attack, a larger fleet, more powerful weapons. Others argued for negotiation, for finding some way to save face while avoiding another embarrassing defeat. And in the shadows of the great halls, a terrible decision was being made. A decision that would test humanity's resolve in ways they had not yet imagined. The council had one more weapon, one they had hoped never to use again. But pride and fear were a dangerous combination. And the Arbiters were full of both. The extinction array was about to be awakened. The council chamber on Volantis Prime was carved from living crystal that had grown for 10,000 years. It was beautiful beyond words, with walls that shifted color like oil on water and ceilings so high they disappeared into mist. For 50 millennia, this room had been the center of galactic power. Now it was filled with screaming. It humiliated us, roared Arbiter Mothven of the Crethany. He was a massive creature with 4 arms and skin like rough stone. The entire galaxy is laughing at us. Tribute species are already beginning to question our authority. If we do not act, our entire system will collapse. And what do you suggest? Asked High Arbiter Kethforan, who had returned from human space, a broken and confused creature. We sent 140 ships, our best weapons, our greatest commander. The humans swatted them away like insects. Then we send more. 1,000 ships. 10,000. We have the resources. To what end? Kethforan replied bitterly. You saw the reports? Their technology absorbs our weapons. Our greatest fleet could not scratch their paint. Numbers mean nothing when the enemy is immune to everything we can throw at them. Arbiter Selikoth of the Vorn, a thin creature with too many eyes, spoke up in a voice like rustling leaves. There is another option. The extinction array. The chamber went silent. Even Mothven, for all his rage, looked uncomfortable. The extinction array was the Council's darkest secret. A network of satellites hidden throughout the galaxy, capable of triggering stellar collapses. It could make suns explode, wiping out entire star systems in moments. It had been used only once 3,000 years ago, against a species called the Veltheri, who had dared to develop weapons that threatened. Council dominance, the Veltheri were now extinct. Their 16 worlds were nothing but ash and radiation. Their name was barely remembered. The array is too extreme, said Kethforan. If we use it, every species in the galaxy will know we rule through terror alone. We will prove that we are not superior, only more willing to commit murder on a massive scale. What is the alternative? Selikoth asked. Allow the humans to spread. Allow other species to follow their example. Within a century, the Council will be nothing but a memory. The debate continued for hours. Arguments flew back and forth, growing more heated with each passing minute. Fear and wounded pride made for a toxic combination. Finally, a vote was called. 8-4 in favor of activating the extinction array. Kethforan closed his eyes in despair. He had seen enough death in his 300 years. He had never wanted to see more. But he was only one voice. And the Council had spoken. The activation codes were transmitted to the array's control center, a hidden station in a remote corner of the galaxy. The operators there, creatures who had trained their entire lives for this moment, began the sequence that would end humanity, and then the system failed. Error. The main console displayed satellite network unresponsive. The operators tried again. Same results. They ran diagnostics, checked connections, verified codes. Everything on their end was working perfectly. But the satellites themselves were simply not there. On Volantis Prime, Kethforan received the emergency report with growing confusion. What do you mean the array is offline? The satellites are gone, the control center reported. All 4,000 of them. Our instruments cannot locate a single one. A new voice suddenly filled the council chamber. It was calm, clear, and unmistakably human. Good morning, Arbiters. My name is Dr. Benjamin Cole. I apologize for the interruption, but I thought you might want to know what happened to your extinction array. The Arbiters looked around wildly, trying to locate the source of the transmission. Their security systems showed nothing. No hacking, no intrusion, no explanation for how a human could possibly be broadcasting into their most secure location. We found your array 6 years ago, Benjamin continued. Your satellites were well hidden, but not well enough. It took us 2 years to figure out what they were for, and another 4 years to disable them all. We had hoped you would never try to use them, but we prepared for the possibility. Mothven snarled. You dare threaten us? We will find other weapons. You will listen, Benjamin interrupted, his voice hardening. Because I am not threatening you. I am offering you a choice. The same choice Admiral Cole offered your fleet? He paused, and when he spoke again, his tone was almost sad. You have spent 50,000 years building an empire based on fear. You found younger species, demanded tribute, and destroyed anyone who refused. And it worked for a very long time. But the universe is always bigger than you think. There is always someone out there learning something new. Humanity is not your enemy. We do not want to destroy you, or conquer you, or take revenge for your threats. What we want is simple: to be treated as equals, to live in peace, to explore and grow and learn alongside you, not beneath you. Kethvorin spoke slowly. And if we refuse, then nothing changes. We will defend ourselves. We will protect any species that asks for our help. We will dismantle any weapon of mass destruction you try to build. But we will not attack you. We will not invade your worlds. We are not you. Chamber was silent. The arbiters looked at each other, seeing their own confusion and fear reflected in alien eyes. You cannot expect us to simply accept this, Selikoth said. Our entire civilization is built on the tribute system. If we abandon it, everything collapses. Then build something new, Benjamin replied. Something better. Your species have knowledge and experience that humanity can barely imagine. 50,000 years of history, of science, of art. You could share that with the galaxy instead of hoarding it. You could be teachers instead of masters. You ask us to change everything we are. No, I ask you to become what you could be, what you should have been all along. The transmission ended, leaving the council chamber in heavy silence. On Earth. President Taylor was meeting with his advisors when Benjamin's report came in. The array is completely disabled, Benjamin said. Our salvage teams are already learning from the technology. Ironically, the Council's greatest weapon will help us advance even faster. Catherine, attending via hologram from the Spirit of Defiance, allowed herself a rare smile. Little brother, you may have just saved the galaxy. I just found the off switch. You and your fleet were the ones who showed them it was time to use it. President Taylor looked at the latest intelligence reports. Across Council space, things were changing. Tribute species were openly discussing resistance. Several Council members were secretly reaching out to humanity, seeking alliance. The old order was crumbling. What happens now? The President asked. That depends on the Council, Catherine replied. They can accept the new reality and work with us, or they can keep fighting. Either way, humanity will be fine. Project Prometheus gives us the ability to defend ourselves against anything they can throw at us. And if they try to build another extinction array, we will find it. We will disable it. And we will keep doing that until they understand that weapons of genocide will no longer be tolerated in this galaxy. Catherine's voice was firm. The universe is too beautiful to be ruled by fear. In his laboratory on Titan, Benjamin Cole looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, 12 species were learning that their empire was over. Thousands of worlds were waking up to the possibility of freedom. A new chapter in galactic history was beginning. He thought about his parents, long dead, who had always told him that science was about making life better. About his sister, who had dedicated her life to protecting others. About the billions of humans who had trusted their leaders to find a way through this crisis. They had not just survived. They had changed the fundamental rules of galactic civilization, and they had done it without becoming monsters themselves. That, Benjamin thought, was humanity's true victory. Not the technology, not the power, but the choice to use that power wisely, the choice to change the galaxy. Instead of conquering it, 1 year had passed since. The day that changed everything, the space station, hung at a point in space that belonged to no one. A neutral place where 17 species had come together to build something new. It was called the Assembly, and it was the most ambitious project in galactic history. Admiral Catherine Cole, now retired from military service, walked through the station's great hall. She wore simple civilian clothes instead of her uniform, though her straight back and steady eyes still spoke of decades of military discipline. She was no longer a warrior. She was a diplomat, humanity's first ambassador to the new galactic order. The hall was filled with creatures of every shape and size. The tall, silver-skinned Velanathi walked alongside the massive, four-armed Crethany. The thin, many-eyed Vorn discussed trade agreements with the beetle-like Torsion. Species that had been enemies for millennia were learning to see each other as neighbors and moving among them, asking questions and making friends. Where humans, Catherine found former High Arbiter Kethvorin, standing by a window looking out at the stars. He was different now, quieter, more thoughtful. The proud ruler who had demanded humanity's surrender was gone, replaced by someone still trying to understand how everything had changed so quickly. Ambassador Cole, he said, using her new title. I was hoping to speak with you, Delegate Kethvorin. Catherine stood beside him, following his gaze to the distant lights. What is on your mind? He was silent for a long moment. I've been thinking about something you said the day your fleet defeated ours. You said that humans did not want revenge, that you wanted to be treated as equals, not to become new masters. I remember, I did not believe you then. In my experience, power always leads to domination. Those who have strength use it to control those who do not. It is the way of nature, the law of the universe. Catherine turned to look at him, and now I am not certain of anything. He made a sound that might have been a laugh. My species ruled this region of space for 10,000 years. We believed we were the pinnacle of civilization, that younger species existed only to serve us. And then you arrived, with technology we could not understand and power we could not match, and you offered us peace. He shook his head slowly. I still do not understand why. Catherine considered her answer carefully. In the years since the confrontation, she had given many speeches and attended many meetings, explaining humanity's philosophy to confused and suspicious alien leaders. But this felt different. This was personal. When I was a child, she said, my grandmother told me a story about a king and a beggar. The king had absolute power over his kingdom. He could take anything he wanted, punish anyone who displeased him, rule through fear and force. And for many years, he did exactly that. What happened to him? He grew old. And as he lay dying, he realized that he had no true friends, no loyal subjects, no one who would mourn his passing. He had power, but he was alone. The beggar in the marketplace, who had nothing but the goodwill of his neighbors, was richer than the king had ever been. A simple story. Simple truths often are. Humanity could have used Project Prometheus to conquer the galaxy. We could have destroyed the Council, enslaved your species, taken revenge for your threats. We had the power to do all of that. Yes, you did. But power is not the same as strength. Any fool with a big enough weapon can destroy. The real test of a civilization is what it chooses to build. Catherine gestured at the great hall around them, filled with former enemies learning to work together. This is what we chose. A future where every species has a voice. Where the strong protect the weak instead of exploiting them. Where we face the universe together instead of tearing each other apart. And you truly believe this can last. I believe it is worth trying. I believe that the alternative, endless cycles of conquest and revenge, leads nowhere worth going. I believe that my grandchildren deserve a galaxy that is better than the one I was born into. She smiled slightly. And I believe that your species, with all your knowledge and experience, have much to offer that future. If you choose to be part of it. Kethvorin was quiet for a long time. Finally, he spoke. Your brother, Benjamin? He told us that we could be teachers instead of masters. I thought it was foolish when he said it. Now I am beginning to understand what he meant. The opening ceremony of the new Galactic Assembly was about to begin. Delegates from dozens of species gathered in the central chamber, filling seats that had been designed to accommodate creatures of every shape and size. President. Marcus Taylor attended via holographic link from Earth. He had aged in the past year. The stress of leading humanity through its greatest crisis, leaving lines on his face and gray in his hair. But his eyes were bright and his voice was strong. Friends and neighbors, he began. We gather here not as conquerors and conquered, not as masters and slaves, but as equal members of a community. 1 year ago, My species was threatened with extinction. We were told to kneel or die. We chose a third option. Paused, looking around at the assembled delegates. We chose to change the question. The old order was based on power and fear. The strong took from the weak and called it natural law. But there is nothing natural about cruelty. There is nothing inevitable about domination. These are choices, and we can choose differently. The galaxy is vast beyond imagination. There are wonders out there that none of us have seen, mysteries that none of us have solved, questions that none of us can answer alone. Why waste our potential fighting each other when we could be exploring together? Why build walls when we could build bridges? Humanity does not have all the answers. We are young, and we have much to learn. But we know this. The measure of a civilization is not how much it can take, but how much it can give. Not how many enemies it can destroy, but how many friends it can make. He smiled, and there was warmth in it, and hope. Welcome to the new age. Let us build something beautiful together. In the audience, Catherine watched as former enemies applauded together. She saw Crethany delegates shaking hands with Vorn diplomats. She saw Torsion scientists exchanging ideas with Velanthi philosophers. She saw the beginning of something that had never existed before, a galactic community based on cooperation instead of fear. On Titan, Benjamin Cole watched the ceremony on his screen, Sophie Martin beside him. His laboratory was quieter now. Project Prometheus was complete. Its technology already spreading to protect every human world and any ally that asked for help. We did it, Sophie said softly. We actually changed everything. Benjamin nodded, but his mind was already racing ahead. There was so much more to learn, so much more to discover. The universe was full of secrets, and humanity was just beginning to explore them. This is just the start, he said. The universe is bigger than any of us can imagine. And now, we get to explore it together, as partners instead of enemies. In the Great Hall of the Assembly, the first votes were being cast for the new charter. Rights for all sentient species. Protection for developing worlds. Shared knowledge and resources. A commitment to peace and cooperation. Catherine thought about her grandmother's stories. About her parents who had believed in a better future. About all the humans throughout history who had dreamed of reaching the stars. They would have been proud, she thought. Not just because humanity had survived, but because of how they had chosen to use their survival. They had been given ultimate power, and they had used it to lift others up instead of pushing them down. They had faced extinction, and they had responded with mercy instead of vengeance. They had changed the galaxy, not by conquering it, but by showing it a better way. As she watched the sunset through the station's windows, painted in colors no Earth sky had ever shown, Catherine felt a deep sense of peace. The future was uncertain, as futures always were. There would be challenges ahead, conflicts and crises that no one could predict, but for the first time in galactic history, the species of the galaxy would face those challenges together. As neighbors, as partners, as friends, all because of one word changed: the end.